Welcome to the Hair Metal Rules Podcast, where we celebrate all things 80s hair and glam rock. Join us as we dive into the world of spandex, big hair, and killer guitar solos with your host, Big J. From iconic bands like Motley Crue and Def Leppard to the lesser-known gems of the era like Lillian Axe and Babylon AD, we cover them all. So grab your hairspray and leather pants because it's time to rock out with the Hair Metal Rules Podcast. Welcome back to the Hair Metal Rules Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Big J, and I'm stoked to have an incredible guest joining me today. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Tommy Rickard, the drummer extraordinaire for the legendary band Vane. Tommy, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on my show, my friend. For those who may not know, Vane is a pioneering band in the hair metal scene, known for their high-energy live performances, catchy hooks, and, of course, their iconic debut album, No Respect. We're going to dive into all things Vane, from the band's formation to their impact on the hair metal movement. Hello, Tommy, and welcome to the Hair Metal Rules Podcast. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. So you're doing some session stuff today?
I am. I'm recording what looks like it's going to be basically a score to a video game. So you go in and somebody has kind of written out the music for it, and you go in and you just read the charts and play what they've written.
Well, that's kind of easy work right there, I guess.
Well, it's easy, but sometimes these guys who write the music are generally like, or some of them can be kind of more, whether they're classically trained musicians, kind of more dealing with orchestras. Right. So then they try and incorporate it to, like, they want it to sound more rock. So they bring in like rock musicians or people that can play rock. So I have to translate their classical structures, and they write it out for a drum set, but it's very much not always what a drummer would normally play. So it can be challenging and fun and just interesting regardless.
So tell me how you started playing drums. What got you interested in drums?
Funny enough, I always loved music. My mom listened to music all the time, so I just gravitated towards drums because I liked the rhythm. I started looking at the records, and I loved Dennis Wilson was the cool guy in the Beach Boys. My mom had a bunch of Beach Boys records, so I was like, oh, he's cool. He looks like the good-looking guy. I want to look like him. Unfortunately, didn't work out.
Oh my! So you picked up drums. What age did you start playing drums?
I started playing drums when I was 13. After I got I think it was Kiss Alive 1, of course, like everybody else, and I wanted to be Peter Criss at that point. And then right after that, I wanted to discover Aerosmith, and I was probably like, I think it was I 10, 11, something like that, 10 or like 11 years old or something. So just wanted to just put on those records and just started playing along with them. I got a drum set, and my parents divorced. My dad wanted to piss my mom off, so he got me a drum set. So
good old dad trying to make mom mad.
Trying to make up for his other inefficiencies, so to speak.
I understand completely. Most people, I haven't talked to too many people, but not just podcast wise, but most people you talk to, Kiss Alive was what I wanted to be. A guitar player, I wanted to be a drummer, I wanted to be the front man of a band, all because I listened to Kiss Alive,
Right. And that's kind of the jumping off point for a lot of us.
Some of my first memories of rock music, I've told the story on another podcast, was I was probably, I don't know, about 5 maybe, and I stayed at my aunt's house, and I had an older cousin that was in high school, and he would listen to that album and play the guitar. He would listen to it for a little bit, lift the needle up and try to pick those chords out. And he was really good to hear it and be able to pick, because he wasn't taught guitar. He just picked one up one day and started playing. And that was, I don't have any, I've always wanted to play guitar, but I don't have the patience to learn how to do it. So,
Well, luckily that's one thing I have, is the patience and the focus. And I literally don't, as a kid, I used to play baseball when I was a kid too, and soccer and stuff. So I would literally throw on like a soccer game or a baseball game, and I just sit there with a practice pad and just tap for like two and
Okay.
a half hours. So I got my practice in on my
Right.
practice pad, and I go sit there and play my drum set and try and play Def Leppard songs or Iron Maiden songs or Kiss song. Well, at that point, when I got a drum set, I was kind of already past Kiss. Kiss was only I mean, I still love them. I still have a soft spot for them, but I kind of moved past them quickly. But I'm into more heavy stuff, and then more and like I grew up listening, like I said, the Beach Boys and Motown and stuff. So I always wanted to play that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, that my parents, I remember I grew up listening to the Platters,
Yep.
the Beach Boys, anything my mom and dad grew up listening to was what I remember listening to as a child.
Of course, that's you
It
couldn't
was,
afford to
I
go
still
out.
like it now.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't afford to go out and buy records yourself, so you had to listen to whatever they had.
Exactly. I had and they didn't even have a record player. It was just whatever station was
Right.
being picked up that was playing oldies at the time, and that's what they always listened to in the car or whatnot.
Yep.
So I
Whatever was on the AM radio.
got a good grasp of it.
Cool.
So how did you get started with the band Vane?
Well, we were all so for well, there was a record store in Santa Rosa called Rebel Records, and Katrina Serdovsky, who eventually was our manager, owned the record store. And I used to go in there and spend my lunch money on import punk and metal records. And we became really good friends. And she was close with Davey, and I had seen Davey in other bands. He was a little bit older, and so we became acquaintances, kind of. I mean, I was a kid. I was like a little punk rock kid. So I was playing in punk bands, and he was in bands that were playing like real shows, like in clubs and theaters and stuff. And I was playing like keg parties and stuff like that in people's backyards. And we play a couple shows in the city, and I thought I made it. We play this place called the Mabuhay Gardens, which is kind of a legendary club in San Francisco. And I was 15 or 16, and you couldn't be in there unless you were 18. So I'd literally go set up my drums and walk outside in the alley and wait till I had to go on. And I'd run right to the stage, play the set, grab my drums, and go back to the alley. I couldn't stay in the club. So
Right.
that was our scene back then. But Davey and I heard that through Kat and a couple of other friends, one of them being Ashley, who was my best friend in high school and still one of my best friends, that Davey was looking for a drummer, and he told me I should try out. It was kind of a punk attitude, kind of gothy glam kind of a thing. And I was like, well, I'm into the gothy and the punk attitude thing, but I'm not into the glam thing. Because I was like I said, I was a punk rock kid, and
Right.
I didn't really think about how I looked. I was just like, I just wanted to play music and didn't really care. And he's like, no, you got great hair. You're going to look good. You're going to be fine. And I was like, I got great hair. What does that even mean? So
Right.
I went down. Well, first of all, they asked me to audition, and I skipped out on them. I didn't want to do it. I just said, yeah, I kept listening to the demo, and I wasn't quite ready. I was probably insecure at the time, still thinking that I wasn't ready to be in a band like that, because they were a little more professional than I was. At least I thought they were.
Right.
But then they gave me another chance, and Davey and I talked on the phone, and we got along really well. And I went down and auditioned, and my drum set never left
Wow. You
until
guys,
Albert did it.
Vane, I remember hearing, well, you didn't know anybody until you saw them on MTV.
Right, and that was the way it was back then. Yep.
You had your Rip magazines, your Metal Edge. You
Yep.
saw the band Vane, and I was always intrigued. I always liked the glam
Yep.
bands.
Yep.
I was always drawn to that, and I saw Beat the Bullet on the Headbangers Ball,
Right.
and I'm thinking to myself, wow, and Vane has always been one of my favorite bands, and the album No Respect is one of those that I can honestly say I like every song on the album.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate
And
that.
back then, you had to buy a cassette tape, and you might not like but one song off that cassette tape, so then you're stuck with it, or unless you listen to it long enough where you kind of learn to like it.
Right. You kind of out of having to, because you have to listen to the whole thing.
Right, because I spent $8.95 to buy one song.
Right.
Nowadays, you can get one song off of iTunes or whatever you want to
Right.
listen to. But I always thought the band, I liked the look, I liked the sound, and I think the Headbangers Ball helped a lot of bands out
For
in
sure.
that era of time, because people on the East Coast, you didn't know anything about bands like this unless you saw them in a magazine.
No, and we like if we wouldn't have been on MTV when we went out on tour, there would have been nobody at those shows. But luckily, the song, even though it didn't get played a ton on MTV, it got played enough where people knew about us, and we were kind of part of the conversation of all those bands. So people would into that music would just show up at our shows. So the shows were all full and great crowds, and met a bunch of people who are still friends today. It was pretty amazing.
Well, what was it like? What was it like on the Sunset Strip back in that era? What was it like playing in the clubs and
Well, we were a San Francisco band, so
right?
we weren't really part of the Sunset Strip thing, and that was a
Okay.
conscious decision. We thought about moving down there, but what we started discovering was that because we were from San Francisco, when we went down to LA, it kind of became a special occasion for people who did like the band. Because we weren't always around. You didn't see us on the Sunset Strip walking around handing out flyers or anything like that. I mean, we did do that when we had shows down there, but it was not our scene. We were more. I mean, I was in San Francisco hanging out at Exodus shows and Metallica shows when they'd play clubs and stuff, and Testament, and those guys were those were my friends. I didn't
Right.
know the guys from Poison. I didn't know the guys from Warrant. I didn't know the guys from Faster Pussycat. I mean, I know some of them now. I've done shows with Brett. Brett and I are buddies, but I like Lars would come to our shows, and Kirk, and he produced one of the demos, and the guys from Exodus would come to our shows because their shows were great, but they were mostly dudes. So they'd always want to come to our shows to meet the girls. It was
Yeah,
funny.
right.
But
That was a
but
whole.
the Sunset Strip was cool. It was cool, and the energy was great, and people were awesome, and they were super enthusiastic about the music and the scene, and it was something we didn't have in San Francisco. So I liked, and we liked going down and kind of dipping ourselves into that and being part of it. But we also really liked what we were where we were from and the music scene that we came from, because I think that is one of the reasons we sound a little more raw and a little heavier at times, or a little more dynamic, because we grew up around bands like that. I mean, that's music we loved. I mean, we love giant guitars and big nasty guitar tones, and drums that sound like they're going to punch you in the face at times. I mean, it's not just overproduced sounding drums, like a drum that's just sitting in front of you and you just whack it, and just you can just feel it. And same with the guitar. You want to move air. Not that those bands
Right.
didn't. It was just we
Yeah.
just approached it in a different way because of what we grew up around. And we had totally embraced that and loved that. As well as the Sunset Strip, which is was also great. It's just very different for us.
What did it feel like when you were first approached with a record deal for No Respect? How did that come about?
Well, we thought it was going to go fast. So when we first got approached, we were like, we made it. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be huge. So we thought, I forget it. I think it was like CBS Records. And the dude that liked us and was really into us was a guy who looked like Robert Smith from The Cure. We all liked The Cure. So we thought we found our guy. He's kind of, he gets us. Because to me, we were a little more like Aerosmith meets The Cure as far as what we looked like,
Right.
with a little more Hanover Rocks as well. Not sonically, but visually. So we met this guy and we thought he was our guy. Cut to 6 months later, we didn't get a record deal from them, and then another label, and then another label, and then it started feeling like here we go again. And then finally, we met Steve Pross from Island Records, and he was our guy. He was the right guy for us at the time, and he got us and really believed in us. And Island let us do what we wanted to do, and as far as how we wanted to do our first record, and kind of wanted to do a really raw record that sounded like us in a club. I mean, that's you literally, you listen to No Respect, we say it all the time. It's like that's just how we sounded when you were in our rehearsal room. I mean, those are our guitar amps. Those are my drums. They sound that snare drum is that's my snare, and it sounds just like it. That I mean, I hit it a certain way, so it sounds like that. And Davey sings that way all the time. He never doesn't sound like that. Delana,
He's got a unique style of singing, in my
sure,
opinion,
100%, and he's able
opposed
to
to the others in that era that you can tell who it is when you hear him sing. Does it make sense?
right away, and because of that, in his style of writing and the way all of us approach his songs and bring what we have to those, we sound different than the other bands, and which I love. I love like songs like Thousand Degrees would be completely different if Faster Pussycat played it. It would just sound.
Yeah.
It wouldn't just be wouldn't even sound the same. There would be no way it sounded the same.
Right.
But to that point, we'd probably sound funny playing "Got Your Number Off the Bathroom Wall."
Yeah, you sound right. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So
But Davey's voice is super unique, and I love that, and I think that's why some people who love his voice and love what his writing style and our style as a unit, they still love what we do when we do get together and we do records because it still sounds like the band.
I heard your new song
Oh, Cold
on.
Like Snow?
Yes, I
Yeah.
heard that. Mark Striegel from
Okay.
XM.
Yep.
They XM doesn't play Vane, but the internet part of XM, Deep Cuts,
Right.
they play Vane on there. And
Okay.
I just happened to be listening to it one day, and they played Vane because on the weekends he'll do a new old.
Yep.
So he played one of your first Vane songs, and then he played Cold Like Snow. And I was like, that sounds just like it was recorded in 1986, 87, 88.
Right.
Still
Right.
got this. I was impressed. I told my wife, I got my wife into this music, and
That's great.
she's my ride or die. She goes to the concerts with me, what. But anyway, she's heard Vane, and I said, I'm very proud of that band because if I didn't know better, I could close my eyes and think I was listening to the very first CD.
Well, and I really appreciate that, first
Seriously.
of all. And it means a lot. But that is one of the things that's great about Davey and Delana and all of us. I mean, we all play unique to ourselves, but we sound even more unique when we're all together, and Davey's voice especially. But when you put it all together, we all add our own little nuances to that. And
Sure.
we take a lot of pride in trying to sound good all the time, and we want to sound like we did in the past. We want to sound even better. I mean, like when we play live, I see videos of us or clips of us from shows that we've done recently, and it makes me happy to hear even the background vocals sounding like they did on the record. Or Off No Respect. I mean, we're older. My voice, I never sang back then, but now Danny's not around, so he did a lot of the higher background vocals. I mean, so does Delana, of course,
Right.
and Ash. But I've been singing more, and I really wanted to sound like Danny did, and I try really hard to make it sound like that. And we do sound. I'm proud that we do sound good live. I mean, we said the band sounds great.
We went to a couple of years ago. We went to the Rock and Pod Expo in Nashville.
Okay.
And Delana was there.
Oh, nice.
And she's always been one of my favorite guitarists.
It's great.
All through the last 40 years, she's always been one of my favorite guitarists. Just the sound, and we walk in there, and I've always listened to this music. You, Vane, the bands from that era, you guys are my heroes. I'm not afraid to say that because that's what I grew up listening to in high school.
Right.
It's the memories I have, good things about high school.
Right.
But we walked in there, and my wife's with me, and here's Ron Keel over here,
Yep.
Elena over here.
Right.
And my wife's like, you look like a teenage schoolgirl, like at a Beatles concert. I thought you were going to start squealing. Well, I walked over to the side because they had like a poster you could get to get people to sign it. So I walked over there and got the poster. And here I come back, and here's Ron, and here's my wife, and here's Delana. She's in the middle of both of them. She's laughing, talking, just talking it up, and she told both of them, she's like, now when he walks around the corner, he's probably gonna fall all to pieces. But it was so great meeting her.
Yep.
And
she's a sweetheart.
She was charging for her autographs, and I told her how much big of a fan she was. She's like, I can't charge you for that. She's like, here. And
she's charging for autographs. I need to start doing that.
I know, right? You make some side money. But, yeah, exactly. But it was great. It was great seeing her. And I saw you for the first time at M3.
Okay. Was it a couple years ago, that show?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Fun one. Yep.
And you and Joe were standing up on the thing there because I got a picture of you and me and him. I took on my iPhone.
Yep.
And because you had a scarf around your neck and you had a hat on.
I can go put the hat on if you want.
But it was cold that weekend. It was so dang cold.
And my girlfriend was mad at me. She's like, "You told me not to bring my jacket."
we had to after we left, when we went back to the hotel the first night, we had to go buy hoodies and stuff like that just to even survive the next few days. The rain, cold, but that's the first time I ever seen you guys play, and I was not disappointed because it's like you just said. You guys sounded just like I imagined you would sound.
Oh, that's good.
And for a band to play live and sound like a record, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Some bands play live and they really don't sound that well.
Yeah, and that's like I said, we take a lot of pride in that. And there are bands like that that were on that bill that I was like I always feel the same about when I see Kicks. I mean, they sound amazing. They sound great live all
Yes.
the time. I'm friends with the guys from Tesla because they're from Northern California as well, and they sound amazing live. Jeff is a great singer. Guy never sounds bad.
Yeah,
So, um,
I've never seen Tesla. They've been around a couple times, but
right.
every year our thing is to go to M3 if we can, because I get to see people that like I said that I have listened to
Yep.
for 40 years.
Right. Who else was on that
And
bill? Tom Kiefer was on the bill. He sounded great.
yes, Tom Kiefer was on the bill. He sure was. I can't remember. I can't, because that was back when it was 3 days. This past
Oh,
year it was only 2 days. So you got Saturday and Sunday.
right. They lost Kicks because Kicks is
Yes.
done. So they lost their was that the Friday night headliner?
Yeah, that was a Friday
Yeah.
night. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Sure was.
They took
So
one of the days out, which I mean, that sucks. I mean, I understand why they retired. They've been around forever and they always
sure.
sound great. I get it. You got to know when to say, you got to know when to just tap out.
Yeah, there's bands out there right now that need to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. But I get it.
Like Kenny Rogers said, right?
That's all you know. That's all you've ever done, and I can't imagine what it would feel like. But that's all you've ever done, and all of a sudden this is it. We're not doing it anymore. I'm like, I can imagine that would be tough, because you get up the next morning, you're like, I don't know what to do with myself.
I mean, that's what happened during the pandemic. I'm between Vane, between Orchid, between Sessions and other bands I play with, and I'm usually doing 200 or so things a year. 200 days a year I'm working. So pandemic hit, boom, nothing for 2 years. You're like, whoa, I've been doing this many shows and this many sessions a year for 20 years. Now what do I do? So
I
I,
know, what do I do with
you know
myself?
what I did? I drove my girlfriend crazy is what I did.
There
So
you go. Well, my wife, she was in the healthcare business at the time, and they cut their hours back. And I'm not used to her being here all day long.
right.
I have my thing. I wash clothes on this day. I do this on this day. And she's at home and she's here all day long. And I'm like, don't you need to go back to work?
Right. Right.
I love you to pieces, but any time for you to go, but they cut their hours back, being it was
Right.
healthcare, elective surgeries. They didn't do that kind of stuff. And, but yeah, I think people were more hungry whenever the pandemic was over to go see music being
For sure.
played again.
For sure.
And so that was that was a good thing for the artists. So,
Yep.
well, what are you, other than doing some drum tracks for probably a cool video game? What else are you working on right now?
Well, Vane are doing some shows. We have a couple shows coming up, which is great. I'm super excited to get together with everybody. We're doing the Whiskey on August 30th, which is a ways away, and September 7th we're in Hinckley, Minnesota. We're doing that festival with, I think the day we play, it's Enough's Enough, Vane, Aldanova, and Loverboy, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then besides that, I do sessions with other artists. Like this past year, I mean, I do random sessions. Like I worked on the new that Disney Muppets show, the Muppets Mayhem. So I did some songs for that show, SpongeBob songs. I mean, you end up in the studio, you just end up doing weird stuff. I mean, you work with friends of yours that are writers and producers, like Linda Perry, who was in the Four Non Blondes. She's a huge producer of songwriter now, so she writes for everybody. And so she's from San Francisco, and we're old friends. She calls, she's like, "Hey, I need you to come in and do this thing. I need you to act like an '80s. You're playing a huge '80s power ballad, like an old Bryan Adams song or something." I'm like, "Okay, I know how to do that." So we go in and play it. I'm like, "What's this for?" She's like, "It's for a SpongeBob movie." You're like, "What the fuck?"
Wow. A new
But
SpongeBob movie, like we really need to have another SpongeBob movie, right?
we definitely do, right? Of course. So stuff like that. I mean, that's just like I love doing it because I love working with on anything. I just love playing. I'm playing with a band called Kingsborough, which is a Northern California band, great rock band. That great vocals, great band, really great songs. We licensed some songs to the NFL. We had a couple songs on a few Netflix shows. So it's just, I mean, it's funny that I even bring that up, but that's kind of the world we're in now. It's like you have to get your songs out there somehow if you're an
Yes.
independent band. So if you get your songs on an NFL show, like a lead in or on an NFL show, all of a sudden your Spotify numbers or your title numbers or whatever go way up. And people
Right.
are searching your Shazam searches. I love that we're speaking about analytics now, but
Yes. Yes,
but
exactly.
it's the world. So and then you go to a show and these people show up at your show and you're like, hey, we just found out about you guys because we saw this NFL thing and we're like, what's that song? Oh my God, they're from San Francisco. We can go see them. They're right down the street from our house. Amazing. So it's just weird. So there's that. And then a band called Orchid, which is a little heavier, like literally we sound like Black Sabbath, which is super fun because
Okay.
I grew up playing and listening to that stuff. Great band, great songs. They have a few records out. This will be my first record with them. I've done shows with them and toured over in Europe with them. It sucks because we started headlining festivals right before the pandemic hit, and then the pandemic hit, and then we were out. So now we're finally getting back on our feet. Everybody's feeling good. Songs are sounding great. We're going to record a record, go back to Europe in 2025. We do better over there, and hopefully get to like South America and stuff. So we stay busy, and I hope Vane are supposed to go back to Europe in 2025 too. Fingers crossed. To play some more festivals this year. We put the record came out a little too late to get on those bills.
Right.
Those things are booked like a year in advance. So
Yeah.
there's so many moving parts. You have to do it that way. So yeah, I'm hopeful that Vane can do more shows. And I think I know that Davey's got another set of songs in there somewhere. So probably already has 8 that he's working on. So
Right.
I'm sure there'll be another Vane record in the next 5 years or so. And who knows? That'll be number 10, I think. I think that's I think it'll be the 10th one when we do another one. I love that I'm already talking about a new record and then the other one just came out.
Right. Isn't it amazing that I know we're all dependent on technology, but isn't it amazing that you have platforms that you meet people and they like you, they follow you, you
Yep.
can communicate with them. 30
Right.
years ago, I mean, you talked on the telephone, you
Right.
corresponded through mail, but now you can send somebody something 2 seconds later, not even 2 seconds later, it's right there in their hand, and
It's bananas. Yeah,
you
it's
have
crazy.
more exposure than you did 40
Yeah.
years ago.
Yep.
I talked to Adam Holland yesterday, and he said, Valentine wasn't a big band because they were they were on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
He said more people know about us now through social media than they ever did, back in 1988 when they released their album.
Yeah, I mean it's funny that way. It's funny that I mean that social media has allowed, excuse me, has allowed people to build relationships even though they're virtual, but it's still communication and it's personal and you feel an attachment. And because of that, we have our little fan group, like the Vane Army, which is amazing. And we have like 2,000 people that are super, super engaged. And I freaking love it. It's so much fun just to interact with these people and then to go out and do a show and meet them in person and talk to them. And it's so awesome to even think that 30 some odd years later, 35 years later, that people are still, I think the record came out 35 years ago today, right?
Today, really?
I think it was 89, what's today, the 7th?
June the 7th, yes.
I thought it came out on the 7th. I know that Wikipedia says something different, but maybe it's the 12th. But right around there. So whatever that Tuesday is, right around there. But still, 35 years later, people are still kind and appreciative and want to talk to us because of something we did that long ago. It's pretty amazing, and it never goes unappreciated. So it is. I know that social media can drive people crazy and for so many different reasons.
Sure. Well, social media can be used for good. Social media can be used for bad. That it's
Right.
just like anything else in life.
Just like anything. I mean, yeah, too much of anything is probably a bad thing. So,
That's right. But I think it's great that you have people that have followed you for 35, 40 years, and now they have a avenue of where they can actually give you a comment and say something to
sure.
you that they weren't able to say, that long ago. That's the neat thing about it. So
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you wake up one day, you're kind of in a bad mood because you got to do something, whatever. Everybody gets in bad moods, a million different reasons. The coffee's bad. I spilled my coffee. Who knows? It's all about coffee.
Right.
Coffee,
right.
The tacos, all about coffee and tacos for me. That's kind of California. I'm beyond a California kid. So,
Coffee and tacos. I hear you.
So I had a bad taco, so my day's bad. But then somebody sends me a nice message on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, or X, whatever the hell it's called, or Facebook, and they're so kind and they're so appreciative and they're so thoughtful and they took the time to send you something that's really just nice. It's like, God damn it, thank you. You really made my day. You actually turned my day around. It's amazing. So I appreciate that.
That's the good part of it.
100%. And this too, right? We wouldn't be talking.
Sure.
Yeah, which is amazing. I'm like, hey, send me a message. You want to do the podcast? Of course. That's awesome.
Well, I'll tell you something. 35 years ago, when I'm listening to Beat the Bullet, and 35 because I would have been graduating from high school. I would have never in a million years thought I would be sitting here talking to you
Oh,
to do a podcast.
well, I appreciate it, man. I
My
really do.
the goal of my IG page and podcast is I just want to keep this music alive
Right.
because this music has meant so much to me for so many years. My daughter loves this music. She's been listening to it since she was 3.
That's great.
And just to introduce people to bands that I was always the more, you guys weren't necessarily obscure, but you weren't Motley Crue.
No,
I always
yeah, we were on the fringe. We were on the, we were touching the bubble, but we weren't inside the bubble.
right. I always gravitated towards those bands,
Right.
the Veins, the Heaven's Edge, the Hurricane Alice's, those kind of bands, and those have the soft spots in my heart. And to actually be able to talk to someone, that's a thrill. Let me tell you, even all these years later.
Well, I appreciate it. And I mean, there's something cool about the bands that didn't become huge, didn't become Motley Crue because not everybody knew about them. So it's kind of personal in a way.
Yes.
And I always thought that, and I mean, believe me, as a kid from San Francisco in the punk scene, where we were just passing out demos when nobody knew who Metallica was, and you just had a little cassette tape.
Right.
So it was your secret. So that is such a personal thing. And then to 30 years later for me, I was in Chicago and I was doing a gig and Metallica were playing over at Soldier Field, and I was like, I'm gonna see if I can get in. So I got a hold of them, and they were like, they got me in. Like all those years later, Kirk remembered me, and it was super cool. So I went, and I'm standing there watching. I'm like, oh my God, there's 75,000 people here. And they went from that band who I used to have their cassette tape. And it was just, and my buddy made it for me and his buddy made it for him.
Right.
And
yes.
Now there's just this. And it was amazing. I was like, this is amazing. And I'm super proud of what they've become. But that little personal moment, that version of Metallica, the Hurricane Alice, like you said, or Vane, or any of those bands that didn't make it, they can't help but hold a special part in your heart.
And they never had their moment in the sun, but I think they do have their moment in the sun, just the memories people have of them. And
for sure,
because back during the pandemic, I didn't have a whole lot to do, so I started tracking, just Googling all the band members of a band,
right?
Just see if they had a website,
right?
And I would just politely email them, I have something I would like to mail you. Would you mind autographing it for me?
Right.
And you'd be surprised how many of them are like, how do you even know who I am? How do you even remember me? We were nobody, but I'm very flattered. Yes, send me. I'll be more than glad to sign it for you. And they even write you, take the time to write something to you that, you made my day.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing who I was and remembering the band, and so that's what makes it all worthwhile,
100%.
Well, I have one more question for you. It's just a fun question.
I'm excited about it. I'm ready.
If you were stranded on a deserted island, what 3 albums do you have to have?
God damn it! See, people have asked me this, and people ask me like what kind of music I listen to. I am the worst at this. And the reason I'm the worst at this is because I'm completely schizophrenic musically. Like literally Ash and I were talking about this 2 days ago because he was driving from LA to Northern California. So it's like a 6-hour drive. So he's in his car making playlists. And I'm like, playlists? I can't make a playlist. He's like, what are you talking about? You have like this and that. I'm like, no, I'll listen to Miles Davis. And then the next minute I'll listen to Venom. And then I'll listen to Iron Maiden. And then I'll listen to Taylor Swift. I mean, I am all over the map. So it is real hard for me, but I have certain albums that are 100% that I never get sick of. I mean, like I still hear.
Give me 3 of those.
Like
you never get sick of.
As a metal kid, like the metal kid in me, when I hear Number of the Beast, that is just classic because I'm a huge Clive Burr fan. First of all, the original drummer from Iron Maiden was my favorite. And then, but then I go to the Beach Boys, the Pet Sounds, because I just love those vocals on God Only Knows. I can hear those first lines in that song, the harmonies, and Carl Wilson just singing like that. I'm like, if there's perfection, that's it. And then, what else? I mean, it's pretty, what was I? There was something on the tip of my tongue here. I love Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. I mean, that's classic. Okay. So again, all over the place.
All over the place. Well, that's good. There's nothing wrong with that because I can listen to Vane, or I can listen to the Pet Shop Boys.
Yep.
or
Love the
I
Pet
can
Shop Boys.
listen to the Power Station. I can listen to Duran Duran.
Oh, Tony Thompson's one of my favorites. Oh, I just saw
Yes.
my girl and I just saw Duran Duran at the Hollywood Bowl last year.
Wow, really?
They were amazing.
I never saw them, but I was always before I migrated to hair metal. It was top 40.
Yep.
You know, Duran Duran. I had a room full of Duran Duran, and then it turned into a room full of Metal Edge, tear out some Metal Edge and tapestries and all that kind of good stuff. So
That's awesome.
well, sir, I do appreciate your time. It means a lot to me.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for taking the time.
I wish you luck. I wish the band luck.
Thanks,
and,
man.
You take care of yourself, and God bless you in everything you do.
You take care of you and your family, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Are you going to come out to any of the, well, we only have those 2 shows right now, so hopefully our paths cross again.
If you get closer to the East Coast, I guarantee you I'll be there. Or if you play M3 again anytime, I guarantee you I'll be there, and I'll see you again.
Hopefully we'll be there next year. I know that this year we weren't. It's kind of a weird thing. It gets on some of the bands are on like a 2-year kind of cycle.
Rotation.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. Fingers crossed.
I know I've seen Faster Pussycat twice, but there was a year in the middle that they weren't there. So
Right.
I see what you're saying. So
I think we're a little step, might be, I hate to even say it, but like a step down from that. So I think we might be on the 2-year rotation.
2-year rotation. Well, if I get to see you again in 2 years, it'll be a pleasure. How's that?
Same, my friend.
Well, you have a good rest of your day and take care, and thank you.
You too, man. Cheers.
Bye-bye, sir.
Bye-bye.
It's been a blast talking hair metal with you today. A big thank you to Tommy Rickard for taking time out of his busy schedule to talk with us. Faint has always been one of my favorite bands. They have a distinct sound, and you can always tell Davey's voice when you hear it. Faint is releasing new music, and you need to check out the band's new single, Cold Like Snow. It sounds amazing. The band hasn't lost the sound that made them an iconic 80s band. Listeners, I appreciate your support and hope the things we discuss on the show bring back some great memories for you. If you wouldn't mind, please rate the show on all platforms and give me your feedback. I'm going to leave you with 2 of my favorite Vane songs. This is Beat the Bullet and Icy.
What you got going? You've got temptation. true what the people say? She's gone, she ain't coming back. She lives alone behind a wall of black. She's gone, she ain't coming back. Top threw around off the tracks. Somehow I see went astray. Bars are cold, but she's a hot girl. Don't you know that? Don't you know that? I see she's going to heaven. I see, 'cause she's been through hell. I see, will they find you? Is it true what the people say? She's gone, she ain't coming back. She lives alone behind a wall of black. She's gone, she ain't coming back. A tough girl who ran off the tracks. She's gone, she ain't coming back. She lives alone behind a wall of black. She's gone, she ain't coming back. A tough girl who ran off the tracks. Don't you know that? Don't you know that? Don't you know that? Don't you know that I'll find you, I see. She's gone, she ain't coming back. She lives alone behind a wall of black. She's gone, she ain't coming back. Top girl who ran off the track. Now is it true? She's gone, she ain't coming back. She lives alone behind a wall of black. She's gone, she ain't coming back. A top girl who ran off the track. Don't you know? She's gone, she ain't coming back. She lives alone behind a wall of black. She's gone, she ain't coming back. Too tough, the girl off the tracks.
Until next time, keep rocking and stay tuned for more shows filled with exciting talks about your favorite hair metal bands. Until next time, so long, and God bless you all.